Hello my friends, welcome back to the channel. I feel like I should be saying that to me. I am sorry I've been away for so long. I've had a lot going on, as I keep saying in every video, and I swear to you, I did have a video ready to go for last week, but then when I kind of edited it and put it together, it just didn't come across very well at all, and I thought I can't possibly put this up. So here I am. Things are so busy right now, but I hope you'll forgive me for this basic video. I assumed that you would appreciate a video, even if it's just a Q&A, rather than not have a video. So there's my intro. Let's go. Okay, so yes, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is just going to be a little Q&A to kind of re-establish myself and say hello to you once again after being away for so long. I have been really busy with the Poetry Cove, which is going very well. If you don't know about that, www.thepoetrycove.com. I've also, if you don't follow me on Instagram, which you should, naughty, I've just announced that there will be a new collection of poems coming out this year. There isn't a launch date just yet, at least there isn't a launch date announced just yet. There's a few dates that we're throwing around, but there is going to be a cover reveal on my Instagram next month, so go and follow me on Instagram if you want to be kept up to date with that. As always, it's very hot in this shed. But yes, so I did send out a post in YouTube and in Instagram stories. So I'm just going to be answering some questions today and help you get to know me a little bit better, and also to answer those burning poetry questions that you guys have. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with some short fire questions, shall we? How old are you? I am, at the time of recording this, 29. I was born 5th of May, the 5th of the 5th, 1992. What's your favourite colour? Black. Not in a depressing way. I just feel like black is smart. It's a smart colour. It's a classy colour. It's a blank slate. For me, black is more of a blank slate than white. I'd happily have black paper instead of white. Who's your biggest inspiration? Well, there's this guy. I'll get there in the end. There's this guy, Mr. William Shakespeare. Who else? I have a few inspirations. William Shakespeare, Charles Bukowski, Jack Kerouac. Those are my literary inspirations. Tom Waits, Bob Dylan, Johnny Depp, DiCaprio. Once upon a time, I still think a lot of him, but I wouldn't class him as an inspiration these days. Excuse me. It wouldn't be an Adam Gary video without burps. Yeah, those are some of my inspirations. What is the Poetry Cove? Of course someone's going to mow their lawn as soon as I start recording. Okay, what is the Poetry Cove? The Poetry Cove is something that I started on a whim to try and bring... I haven't recorded a video. Okay, you take next week out of the equation, last week out of the equation. I haven't recorded a video in nearly a month. And I sit down to record and my neighbour next door decides to turn on the lawnmower. What was I saying? What is the Poetry Cove? So the Poetry Cove is... Wow, it's gotten bright. Let's see if I can turn that down. The Poetry Cove is an idea for the third time that I had on a whim to try and bring poets together. I felt like there was so many poets on Instagram, so many poets doing their own thing separately, but I couldn't find a place that brought poets to do their thing together. There are forums, of course, and we started out with a forum, but I wanted to create something that was all-encompassing under one roof. So if you wanted to listen to a poetry radio station and talk to your poet friends at the same time, whilst reading a poetry blog, I wanted it to be something, there wasn't anywhere that kind of brought everything under one roof, all in one place. And so that's how the Poetry Cove came about. You can join that community at www.thepoetrycove.com. We are this close to launching a radio station. Will you date me? I think my girlfriend might have something to do with that. And I put this next to the other question because I tried to order it in some way. What's it like being in a long distance relationship, and how did you meet from so far away? What's it like being in a long distance relationship? To be honest, what's really great about what we have at the moment is we're both poets, and we're both creative, and we've both got really strong imagination. So a lot of the time we don't feel the distance because we kind of just pretend that there isn't an ocean in between. There are other times where it gets hard, when one's feeling sad and the other can't be there. But you make it work. And how did we meet? She said I look like Shrek. No, I don't want to say too much. I don't know how much Sophie... I really need to find a filming location in the middle of nowhere. With no distractions. I don't want to say, I don't know how much Sophie will want me to say, but we met online and she was replying to my Instagram stories and she kept calling me Shrek. And then one thing led to another. How do you deal with rejection? Okay. This has come up a few weeks ago on the Poetry Cove. Join the Poetry Cove because there's so many other poets on there going through the same thing, and we were talking about something similar to this, I think, rejection. And one of our members, Matthew, said something that really stood out for me, and even I'm learning from things from other poetry covers. And he said, he paraphrased another quote, but it was something like, a great writer submits with the intention of receiving 50 rejections a month. And I think that's really important, and it's just really powerful to just flip your mindset. You're not submitting for acceptance, you're submitting because you have to get 50 rejections a month, and it just kind of helps with the whole rejection thing. Another thing for me, I very rarely submit. I've always been a bit of a lone wolf, and I kind of do my own thing, I don't submit to a lot of places, if ever. I prefer to go it alone. It's a lot better that way. In terms of mental health, it's a lot easier. But I think you have to manage your expectations, and you have to understand that sometimes in this world, things are just out of our control. Sometimes in this world, there's just going to be no. It's just part of life. Actually, this is a good thing, actually, that this is coming up, because just yesterday and today, funnily enough, how long are we on? 7 minutes. Funnily enough, just yesterday and today, I'm going through applications from actors, because for the radio we're going to have a recording service where people who don't have recording equipment, or maybe are just not ready to record their poems yet, can submit their poem to us, and then we get a professional actor to then read it and then put it on the radio station. That's going to be something that we do. And in 2 days I had 200 actors apply to do this with me. And you imagine me trying to sit there, go through 200 people listening to their audition, and out of those 200, let's say three of those people are so similar. They have the same style, they even look similar. And so it becomes, it's horrible to say this, but I was an actor and I'm a poet now. It's eye-opening. It becomes, as a casting director, or whatever you want to call me, it becomes a case of finding an excuse to say no. If someone has sent you their audition through an email instead of through the casting software, that's an excuse. Okay, well, he doesn't follow, he'll be a problem in the future. All I'm trying to say is things aren't always in your control. It's not because you're not good enough. It's just because shit happens. But that's how to deal with rejection. Manage expectations and change your mindset. Submit for as many rejections in a month as you can possibly get. And then when you get 100 rejections, you're going to be like, oh, how am I going to break that record? Hope that makes sense. What am I doing? Alright, let's move on, shall we? How do you deal with rejection? What makes you the most uncomfortable in any situation? That's a good question and a very broad question. What makes me uncomfortable in any situation? Heat. I'm uncomfortable right now. Heat makes me uncomfortable. What makes me uncomfortable in any situation? I probably should have prepared answers for this before turning on the camera. I don't like it. I don't like when people are too big for their boots. Let's say that. What poetry skill do you want to improve? What is your biggest creative insecurity? This is a tough question for me, and I don't want, by any means, I don't want to come across as big-headed, too big for my boots. But with poetry, I've never felt more secure. With acting, I always had imposter syndrome. I was always insecure about my abilities and stuff. Poetry, I just love it so much. I just feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. So really, I can't answer what I'm most insecure about. I guess there's always that worry of, am I good enough? Am I good enough? But that only lasts a day or two. And the thing about poetry, which kind of leads on nicely into your first part of the question, what would I like to improve? The thing about it is, we're never finished learning. We are never finished learning. We're always improving. We're always learning. So what would I like to improve on in my craft? Everything. Because I haven't finished learning. I want to improve everything. And that's, again, about mindset and rejection. You kind of understand, okay, didn't get that poem submission. What can I do better to make sure the next poem is accepted? So I'm always improving. I want to improve on all aspects of my work. And I am massively. My style has changed massively since starting this channel, since writing in general. My book that's coming out at the end of this year, it's called The Early Works. I have released the title of it on Instagram. The Early Works is going to be a final sort of farewell to the old Adam, and at the same time introduce the new Adam, my new work. So it's going to have all the stuff that's obviously been edited from my past. It's going to be poems from 2013 right up to 2021, and there's such a huge stark contrast, and that's what the early hours are gonna. That's what the early hours is going to be. It was originally going to be called The Early Works, then I got convinced out of that, and now it's called The Early Hours, and that's what the early hours is going to be. It's going to be a signing off of the Adam Gary that I used to be, Adam Gary the poet, the naive teenager, up to present Adam Gary, who has learnt so much and has really sort of veered off into a new direction, and that's what that collection is going to be. Moving on? Let's move on. Do you know any cheap printing places in the UK for books? I think Google might. I don't personally know. I use a company called Lightning Source, which is a print-on-demand service. But Google might be a better friend. Do you struggle with the end of a piece or the beginning, if you had to compare the two? I think the beginning, you have to, for me, when I sit down to write, it's really important I start off on the right foot to get that creative momentum. I'm not saying, obviously, that first line will be the perfect first line, but it has to be something that kind of makes me go. Makes me, like, roll and what do musicians call that? Jam, and makes riff? I don't know. But I think the hardest part is starting the poem. You can always come back and get the end line. I suppose you could argue you could always come back and get the opening line, but for me and my process, as I say, I really have to, boom, get that opening pretty much from the start so that I can just riff. What am I talking about, man? Regarding social media outside of Canva, any other tools you use for social media? Yes, there are. Canva, Later, I think it's called Later, or Later, I think, to schedule. More so for the Poetry Cove now, we use Later because there's so many social media platforms to handle for the Poetry Cove. But I would recommend it if you've got a lot on your hands, look at Later. And there are a couple of hashtag softwares that you could look at. Hashtastic, I think, was one of them, but I never really got on with it. And I think Flick might have been one as well. But I haven't used them for a long time, and so this is not me telling you to go and do it. It's me telling you to do your research. But there are other softwares other than Canva that I use or used to use. In an alternate universe, where you are a superhero, what would be your power? I think I got this wrong. I'm assuming it's power, but I've put poem because I took it from Instagram onto my notes, and it says poem here, but I'm pretty sure it actually said power. In an alternate universe where you are a superhero, what would be your power? Follow-up question, who would be your villain? My power would be to touch someone on their head and make them a genius poet no matter what. And my supervillain would be Gabby Hanna. No, let's go easy on Gabby Hanna actually. I think maybe the world went in a bit too hard on Gabby Hanna. I'm starting to feel guilty and sorry for her. Please tell us how to make a poetry book. How many poems we need, or how many pages? How is the process of making a poetry book? Okay, we got 12 minutes and we're 17 minutes in, so I'm going to start speeding through so I don't lose you guys. Okay, so how to make a poetry book. Write poems. Don't overthink things. Again, funnily enough, this came up on the Poetry Cove. Someone asked how many pages they should have in their book. I don't know if that was Matthew or Chris. See, I know the Covers. I know Covers by name. That's another reason to join, so we can get to know each other and become friends. I think it might have been Chris. I think it was Chris. And what I said, and what I'll say now is, in terms of pages, don't overthink things, because if your poetry is good enough, no one's going to be counting pages. If your poetry's bad, people are going to be counting pages and wish that you had put out a chapbook rather than a book. So focus on the poetry. That's the most important thing. The process. If it's your first book, I would say use. I haven't got any experience with Lulu or anything like that, but I would, only because what I used was Amazon. I think it's called. I think it's KDP now. It's not. It used to be CreateSpace. I think it's KDP now. Sign up to that, and it will walk you through it. But the main thing is, don't overthink things. Don't get caught up in things that don't really matter. If your poems are good, you'll know when the book is finished. Don't worry about how many pages. It doesn't matter. Favourite painter. My favourite painter. I really enjoy Van Gogh's story, but I'm not massive on painters. I like Van Gogh's story. I'm going to say my favourite painter is Sophie. Do you have a favourite form of poetry? I love sonnets. I love the idea of sonnets. I guess I'm slightly obsessed with this guy, Shakespeare. I love sonnets, but I almost always write free form. How do you deal with rejection? I've already got that. Already answered that. And that is the end of the questions. That is 19 minutes of me answering questions. Probably bored the heck out of all of you. Hopefully you enjoyed some of my answers. And again, I am really sorry that I'm not posting as much. Hopefully once the radio launches, things will settle down and I can kind of re-establish myself and get a base level of work. Go back to scheduling my own social media stuff. But thank you so much for still being here. If you're still watching this, if you still care about my content, I really appreciate it. We are still growing. The channel is still growing and getting views and subscribers, so thank you so much. If you do want to kind of see me or hear from me a bit more, you can follow my Instagram. I'm still doing stories over there from time to time. Can't say that it's entertaining though. My name's Adam Gary, I'm a poet, and I'm wearing granddad slippers right now.